There comes a day in every person's life when a painful question quietly emerges. Did I ever truly love them? Or did I simply love the person I imagined they were? Most heartbreak does not begin when someone leaves. It begins the moment reality collides with fantasy. Carl Jung believed that the human mind rarely sees people as they truly are. Instead, it unconsciously paints them with hidden desires, unmet needs, childhood wounds, and forgotten dreams. We don't fall in love with another person first. We often fall in love with our own projection. And the more empty we feel inside, the more perfect they appear. What feels like destiny may simply be the mind searching for completion in someone else. The day you stop romanticizing people is painful, but it is also the day you begin seeing reality. And according to Jung, that is where genuine freedom begins. If Carl Jung had to choose one idea that explains why people suffer so deeply in relationships, it would probably be this: projection. Projection is the unconscious tendency to attribute parts of ourselves to someone else. It is not a deliberate act of imagination. It happens automatically, beneath awareness. According to Jung, we do not meet another person with a blank mind. We meet them carrying our unmet longings, hidden fears, forgotten wounds, and the image of the person we have always been searching for. This is why someone can seem extraordinary after only a few conversations. You are not seeing who they are. You are seeing who your unconscious needs them to be. Jung described these inner images as the anima and animus, the unconscious feminine within men and the unconscious masculine within women. These archetypal patterns quietly shape attraction, causing us to mistake a deeply personal psychological experience for objective reality. For a while, the illusion feels magical. Every flaw is ignored. Every coincidence feels meaningful. Every silence is interpreted as mystery rather than incompatibility. But reality is patient. Eventually, the real person begins to emerge, and the projection starts to fade. What many people call falling out of love is often something else entirely: the painful collapse of an illusion. Jung believed this moment is not the end of love. It is the first opportunity to experience it. Only when projection ends can we begin to see another human being as they truly are, instead of as a mirror reflecting our own unconscious desires. Carl Jung believed that the greatest illusions are born in the unconscious. Decades later, Nobel Prize-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman explained why those illusions feel so convincing. Although they came from very different traditions, both arrived at a similar conclusion. The human mind is not an objective observer of reality. It is a storyteller. Kahneman describes two systems that guide the way we think. System 1 is fast, emotional, and automatic. It constantly searches for patterns, fills in missing information, and creates instant judgments with very little evidence. System 2 is slower, analytical, and deliberate, but it is also mentally expensive. Most of the time, we rely on System 1 because it allows us to move through life effortlessly. The problem is that it also allows us to believe stories that were never true. Imagine meeting someone who is attractive, confident, and kind during your first conversation. Within minutes, your mind begins constructing an entire personality around them. If they are charming, you assume they are trustworthy. If they are intelligent, you assume they are emotionally mature. If they make you feel understood once, you begin imagining how they would understand you forever. This mental shortcut is known as the halo effect. One positive characteristic spreads across everything else, creating the illusion that the entire person is exceptional. Kahneman argued that our minds naturally prefer coherent stories over incomplete information. Rather than admitting, "I don't know this person yet," the brain quietly replaces uncertainty with certainty. That another bias quietly takes control. Confirmation bias. Once you believe someone is special, your attention becomes selective. You notice every compliment, but overlook every inconsistency. You remember every romantic gesture, but minimize every warning sign. The evidence that supports your fantasy feels important, while anything that contradicts it is dismissed as an exception. This is why friends often see red flags long before we do. They are observing the person. We are defending the story. Jung would say that projection supplies the image. Kahneman would say that cognitive biases protect it. Together, they reveal a powerful truth. We do not simply fall in love with people. We become attached to the narratives our minds create about them. The tragedy is that reality rarely loses because it is weak. It loses because our brains are astonishingly skilled at editing it. And until we learn to question the stories our minds tell us, we will continue confusing emotional certainty with objective truth. The person standing in front of us may be real, but the version we are loving may exist only inside our own imagination. Why do some people become impossible to let go of? Viktor Frankl believed the answer is often deeper than love itself. He argued that the strongest human motivation is not the pursuit of pleasure or power, but the pursuit of meaning. When that meaning is absent, an inner emptiness begins to grow, a condition he called the existential vacuum. Most people never recognize this emptiness for what it is. Instead of asking, "What is missing in my life?" they ask, "Who is missing?" That subtle shift changes everything. Rather than building a meaningful life, they begin searching for a meaningful person. They unconsciously assign someone the impossible task of healing old wounds, ending loneliness, restoring confidence, and giving purpose to their existence. The relationship becomes more than companionship. It becomes salvation. This is why rejection can feel like the collapse of an entire identity. The pain is rarely caused by losing the other person alone. It comes from losing the future we imagined they would give us. Without realizing it, we handed them responsibility for a life that only we could create. Frankl warned that meaning cannot be borrowed from another human being. It must be discovered through the way we respond to life, the responsibilities we embrace, and the values we choose to live by. A person may enrich your life, but they can never become its foundation. The paradox is profound. The more desperately we need someone to complete us, the less capable we become of loving them for who they truly are. We stop seeing a human being and start seeing a solution. And no relationship can survive the unbearable weight of becoming someone else's reason to exist. Real love begins not when another person gives your life meaning, but when you already possess enough meaning that you are free to love without asking to be rescued. Asterisk. While Jung explained why we project our inner world onto others, Marcus Aurelius offered a discipline for escaping that illusion. His philosophy was simple but demanding. See things as they are, not as your emotions persuade you to see them. The Stoic emperor understood that suffering often begins not with reality itself, but with the judgments we attach to it. A glance becomes a promise. Kindness becomes love. Silence becomes rejection. We rarely respond to facts alone. We respond to the stories we create about them. Marcus trained himself to separate observation from interpretation. Instead of asking, "What do I hope this means?" he asked, "What has actually happened?" That single habit protects the mind from turning imagination into certainty. When we romanticize someone, we stop observing their character and begin editing it. We excuse behavior we would never accept from anyone else. We explain away inconsistency, ignore incompatibility, and mistake potential for reality. The more emotionally invested we become, the harder it is to distinguish the person from the fantasy we have built around them. To Marcus Aurelius, freedom begins with disciplining the perception. Every time we remove exaggeration, expectation, and wishful thinking, we move one step closer to truth. This does not make life colder. It makes love more honest. Because the strongest relationships are not built on idealization. They are built on the quiet courage to see another human being exactly as they are, and to decide, with open eyes rather than hopeful illusions, whether they truly belong in your life. Why is it that some people know a relationship is unhealthy, yet still cannot walk away? Modern neuroscience suggests that what we often call love can, under certain conditions, resemble an addiction. While romantic attachment is a natural part of being human, the brain's reward system can transform emotional connection into compulsive pursuit. This is where the work popularized by Andrew Huberman helps us understand what Jung could only observe psychologically. When someone gives us attention, affection, or validation, the brain releases dopamine, not the chemical of pleasure, as it is often described, but the chemical of motivation and anticipation. Dopamine does not simply reward us. It drives us to seek the experience again. The effect becomes even stronger when affection is unpredictable, a message after days of silence, a moment of warmth followed by distance. A relationship filled with uncertainty creates what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement, one of the most powerful learning mechanisms the brain possesses. Because the reward is inconsistent, the mind becomes even more obsessed with obtaining it. This explains why emotionally unavailable people can become so difficult to forget. The brain is no longer pursuing love alone. It is chasing the possibility of reward. Jung might say, the unconscious is pursuing a projection. Neuroscience adds another layer. The brain is reinforcing that pursuit every time hope briefly returns. The danger is that we mistake emotional intensity for emotional depth. But anxiety is not intimacy. Obsession is not connection. And longing is not proof that someone is right for you. The moment you stop confusing dopamine-driven pursuit with genuine love is the moment you begin reclaiming your freedom. Asterisk. Most people believe clarity is purely a matter of thinking differently. But neuroscience suggests something surprising. The state of your body shapes the quality of your mind. John Rady and Wendy Suzuki have spent years demonstrating that movement does far more than strengthen muscles. Regular physical activity improves mood, reduces anxiety, increases cognitive flexibility, and helps regulate the brain circuits involved in emotional control. In other words, a healthier brain is better equipped to distinguish reality from emotional distortion. When we are chronically stressed, sleep-deprived, or physically inactive, the brain becomes more reactive. Thoughts loop endlessly. Memories become selective. Small emotional triggers feel overwhelming. In this state, idealization grows stronger because the mind desperately seeks comfort, certainty, and escape. This is why heartbreak often feels worse when the rest of life is falling apart. The relationship becomes the only source of emotional relief, and the brain clings to it with even greater intensity. Exercise cannot erase grief. It cannot make disappointment disappear, but it changes the biological conditions under which grief is experienced. As Rady explains, movement helps optimize the brain's ability to learn, adapt, and recover. Suzuki's research similarly shows that exercise enhances emotional resilience and supports long-term brain health. Jung believed that psychological transformation requires confronting the unconscious. Modern neuroscience adds an important insight. The brain finds it easier to face difficult truths when the body is healthy enough to support emotional regulation. Sometimes, the first step toward letting go of an illusion is not another hour of overthinking. It is simply getting up, moving your body, and giving your mind the strength to see clearly again. There is a moment in every deep attachment that feels like betrayal, not because the other person suddenly changed, but because they finally became visible. The qualities that once seemed extraordinary begin to look ordinary. The flaws you ignored become impossible to overlook. The future you imagined starts to dissolve. What hurts most is not discovering who they are. It is realizing how much of what you loved never truly existed. Carl Jung believed this is the painful moment when projection collapses. The unconscious image we placed onto another person can no longer survive contact with reality. And when that illusion dies, it often feels as though a part of us dies with it. Many people mistake this experience for the end of love. Jung saw it differently. He believed it was the end of fantasy. As long as we are in love with our projection, we cannot truly know the person standing before us. We are relating to our own unconscious, not to another human being. Only after the illusion breaks does genuine choice become possible. Some relationships end at this point because there was never anything beneath the projection. Others become stronger because, for the first time, two real people begin meeting each other without masks. The collapse of illusion is not a punishment. It is an invitation. An invitation to stop asking who the other person was supposed to be, and to begin seeing who they have been all along. Reality may not be as intoxicating as fantasy, but it is the only place where authentic love can exist. Carl Jung believed that the greatest mistake we make is searching outside ourselves for what has never been developed within. The qualities we desperately admire in others: strength, confidence, wisdom, compassion, purpose often point toward parts of our own personality waiting to be awakened. This is the beginning of what Jung called individuation, the lifelong process of becoming a complete human being. Individuation does not mean becoming perfect. It means integrating the hidden parts of yourself instead of projecting them onto someone else. The more you know your fears, your desires, and even your shadow, the less you need another person to carry them for you. This is why healing changes the way you love. You stop asking, "Who will complete me?" and begin asking, "Who can walk beside me?" Relationships no longer become a search for rescue, validation, or identity. They become a meeting between two people who are each responsible for their own inner lives. Jung believed that every broken illusion brings us closer to ourselves, if we are willing to learn from it. The person you were searching for was never meant to save you. Were meant to reveal the parts of yourself that still needed to be found. And perhaps that is the deepest purpose of love, not to make us whole, but to show us where we have yet to become whole. The day you stop romanticizing people is not the day you become cynical. It is the day you become free. Free from expecting others to heal your wounds. Free from confusing fantasy with intimacy. Free from chasing the impossible hope that another person will finally complete what only you can build within yourself. Carl Jung believed that psychological growth begins when we withdraw our projections and face ourselves with honesty. What once appeared to be someone else's perfection is revealed as a reflection of our own unconscious longing. This realization is painful, but it is also liberating. Because when you no longer need people to be perfect, you finally give them permission to be human. Real love is not blind. It sees flaws without denying virtues. It chooses commitment without demanding perfection. It replaces illusion with understanding and possession with respect. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. The person who changes your life is not always the one who stays. Sometimes they are simply the one who forces you to stop searching for yourself in someone else. And on the day you stop romanticizing people, you may discover that the love you were chasing was never meant to be found in another person. It was meant to begin with the one person who has been waiting for your attention all along: yourself.